Ladies and gentlemen, brand new Marvel Snap data mines are here. There is 5 brand new cards to look at. Live reaction to all of them. War Machine is first, who I have seen, and this card excites me greatly. Perhaps a contender for Season Pass card with the fact it's such an iconic character. It's 4 energy, it's 6 power, and it reads as follows. On reveal, until the end of next turn, nothing can stop you from playing cards anywhere. So War Machine is in many ways turning other cards into Jeff. And I think the key place this card is going to fit is going to be Lockdown. In particular with a Storm and Legion sandwich. So Storm on turn 3, War Machine on turn number 4, most likely into a different location. And then that Legion can come down into the flooded location on turn number 5, just completely emptying the board. Everything's going to be flooded. At the moment, if you want to go for that Legion Storm combo, you have to play your Storm on turn 4 to Legion it on turn 5, and that can feel quite slow. But a well-timed War Machine on turn 4 is going to allow you to sneak that Legion in on turn number 5, and I think War Machine is going to have a place in these pretty exciting Legion lockdown decks. Definitely an extra piece of the puzzle. And of course, even if you don't find that Legion combo, you could play War Machine on turn 5 instead, and then sneak something into your Storm lane regardless. Really like the look of War Machine. Of course, could just get a bit of value with some dodgy locations as well. Up next, we have Hope Summers, a 3 energy, 3 power card. So Cerebro 3, as well as Silver Surfer decks instantly jump as potential cards for Hope. After you play a card here, you get +2 energy next turn. So I would imagine this is only happening once. Hope isn't going to be every single time you play a card here, you're getting 2 extra energy. But Hope seems like she's got some potential with Professor X, perhaps, where you could play Hope as well as Wasp the same turn to get a Professor X down on turn 4. That's one little bit of synergy. Also, with a Silver Surfer deck, perhaps, if you play Hope down early on turn 5, you might play something like Silver Surfer and a Jeff. But then on turn 6, that would allow you to not just play those 2 3-drops, but also add in an extra 2-drop, something like Quake, which could surprise your opponent on turn 6, alongside a Brood and a Silver Surfer, for example. It gives you that little bit of extra energy. Also, it would allow you to go Silver Surfer Absorbing Man. Pretty interesting card. I definitely wouldn't be too surprised to see it find a home in Cerebro decks as well as Silver Surfer decks, because I do think a lot of the time those decks are just wanting that little bit of extra energy, particularly in a Cerebro deck. That 2 extra energy could be a lot of points if you've got a Cerebro and a Mystique buffing it up as well. So pretty excited to see Hope Summers in those Cerebro 3 decks as well as Silver Surfer. Again, in the comments, let me know if there's any other ideas that you have. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoy seeing me back. It's been a while since we've made a video. Pixie up next, another contender for Cerebro 3 simply because she's 3 power. 1 energy on this one, and on reveal, you shuffle the costs of all cards in your deck. Wow, this is my live reaction to these cards. Pixie seems pretty insane. If you have like Wasp in the deck, for example, and then a bunch of 6-drops, one of your cards in theory would then become free to play, whereas then your Wasp would cost 6 to play. So Yellow Jacket, Wasp are definitely 2 cards coming to mind that you might want to be playing with Pixie, and then just try and cheat out big stats. This looks like a really fun card to build your whole entire deck around. I am really liking the look of this one. I think in a Thanos deck as well, it could make a lot of sense. You're going to have some pretty expensive stones, but then you're also going to have a lot of cheap cards which could cost you just 1. Cards like Hulk. Of course, Blob then could fit into that deck. So I think Pixie in Thanos is looking particularly tasty, and I'm excited to give her a try. We do have a few more, maybe perhaps one more. There is also a couple of cards which got changed in the data mines. They'd previously been data mined, but their stats have changed, so we're going to look at those as well. Mockingbird, a 5 energy card for 9 power, so a lot of stats on this card before her ability. Costs 1 less for each card you have in play that didn't start in your deck. So Mockingbird, a little bit of a cost reduction card in a similar way to Scar. You're going to be looking to play her for a little bit cheaper. Perhaps then she could be good in combination with Storm if you can get her down on turn number 4. Also could be good with Goose if you can get her down to 3 cost, because then a 9 power card in a Goose lane seems very, very tempting indeed. The big question is though, how are you going to be getting Mockingbird value? Well, cards that come to mind instantly are cards like Debris, which would be putting 2 rocks on your side of the board as well as your opponent's. Brood, also a different route perhaps, because you're getting those 2 broodlings. So perhaps she could be a good power play in a Patriot deck. But I do think board clog deck seems like a little bit of a better idea. Just with Debris alone, your Mockingbird would cost just 3. So this card seems actually very, very powerful to me, potentially. If you're creating cards, costs 1 less for each card you have in play that didn't start in your deck. So any token, rocks, of course, Vibranium, if the Vibranium Mines is in play on hot location days, she could be really quite fantastic. I would imagine, for example, Multiple Man off of Phoenix Force wouldn't count for Mockingbird because Multiple Man was in your starting deck. But if you're playing Squirrel Girl as well, Mysterio, I suppose the Mysterio clones would count towards Mockingbird. So certainly got potential in Patriot decks, but I do think that board clog is going to be the way, because if you've got a rock for 0 points, perhaps more, if you're buffing it up with Patriot, with Debris, this Mockingbird then getting those big points down could be really quite powerful. So maybe some kind of hybrid between Patriot, board clog, definitely works with Storm and Goose as well. So some kind of dirty control deck where you're making it difficult for your opponent to play cards, and then Mockingbird can just come through and surprise your opponent on the last turn. Perhaps you can get her to cost just nothing. If you've got Squirrel Girl and Debris down alone, then you've already got 4 cards created on your board which weren't in your starting deck, and that therefore your Mockingbird would cost you just 1. So very excited to see this one too. Lots of exciting cards. And the final new card before we get onto the other 2 new cards as well, but they got Datamined a month ago. I've not seen them, but Cannonball also here. 5 energy, 8 stats. On reveal, move an enemy card away from here and add a rock where it was. If it can't move, destroy it to add the rock. Oh my goodness, imagine the blob into Cannonball counter, because the blob cannot move, and therefore the Cannonball would destroy it and replace him with a rock. So this is a really exciting card, being able to move a card away. So perhaps getting some Craven synergy if you've got Craven on your side of the board, but then also clogging them with a rock. I honestly think this is a really powerful card, you know. We've seen Annihilus has just been nerfed as well, so this is going to be a different way to go for those rock clog decks. I really like the look of it. You get that Debris down, you Viper something early on over as well, and then they just have one big card that's going to be stuck in there. I suppose that the problem with this card is going to be, if you try and play it with rock clog, that it could end up moving just something like a Black Widow's Bite, but it's still good stats. If you can move one of their more powerful cards away, it could secure you a location quite comfortably, and it's definitely an interesting card. I think out of all of these new cards, War Machine is the one. I think Pixie with Thanos might be the strongest. I have a feeling this card might be insane. I really do. Of course, you have to draw her early on for her to be high impact, but this card does seem like I say that, even if you draw Pixie on turn 5, all you need to do is top deck 1 Hulk or 1 Magneto, which swapped its power with a rock, with a Thanos stone, and suddenly you've got a Hulk for 1 energy on the final turn. You're getting a lot of value in Marvel Snap by holding this surprise value, so I think Pixie might be the strongest. War Machine is the one I'm perhaps most excited for, because I do love these Lockdown Legion decks. Mockingbird, I think, looks perhaps 3rd strongest, as well as Hope Summers having big potential. And I would say Cannonball here is the one that I'm least impressed by, at least on the surface. Let me know if you guys would agree with that estimation or that prediction. Now, there is a couple more cards as well that have previously been Datamined. I've actually not seen them before because I've been on a bit of a break from the game, but they have changed their power level. So Coal Obsidian here, it previously was 4 energy and 10 power, but it's actually been nerfed by a point in the Datamined from 10 power to 9 power. And Coal Obsidian reads, you can only play this where you have a 1 cost card. So doesn't really look that impressive, I have to say, at just 9 power. It's just a little bit above curve when there's cards like Sentry that you can play with then the Viper, the Void giving you big value. I don't really like the look of Coal Obsidian at all. It looks quite boring and lackluster. I don't think it's a good card, and it seems like a little bit of an unnecessary nerf. Now, this change is huge because Supergiant is now a 4 energy card with 5 power, with an ability that reads, on reveal, all cards played next turn don't reveal until the game ends. So she is like a little bit of a mini Invisible Woman. She's working in a different way, but it's also going to include your opponent's cards, if I'm not mistaken. All cards played next turn. It doesn't just say your cards, it says all cards. So it's also going to be hiding your opponent's cards. But Supergiant previously was just a 1 energy card with 2 power, but now it's a 4 energy card with 5 power. So a huge nerf to Supergiant. Perhaps in the testing they've been doing, they think this card could prove to be very strong. I think a nice play for Supergiant would be play her on turn 4. And then on turn 5, you could use something like a Shang-Chi or a Valkyrie or a Killmonger. Valkyrie in particular could be a pretty interesting one. So definitely interesting 2 cards to see. I think overall, this Pixie card with Thanos is something to look out for. I would maybe consider start saving your tokens up for that, or your whatever else it might be. I think War Machine, top contender for a Battle Pass card, and overall, just really excited for these new cards. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know if you want to see more Marvel Snap stuff from me. Been on a bit of a break recently, but pretty excited to be getting back into the swing with some content. Thanks for watching. Like the video if you watch this far, and comment down below the card you're most excited to see. Deuces.